Your wife waters flowers, I wanna kill her. I had such an epiphany about this line. Hello, and welcome back to my channel where you can find bite-sized inspo mainly to do with Taylor Swift. If you're new here, my name is Bekah, and this is day 1 of Decoding the Torture Poets Department. We are going on a little adventure through Taylor's latest album, one track at a time. So I hope that sounds good to you. Today we are covering track number 1, Fortnight. I have got some notes on my Torture Poets Department cased phone and a cup of tea. So why don't you grab one as well and let's go.
Who else decodes you?
Do you remember the clock hitting midnight on April 19th, 2024, opening up the newly available album, The Torture Poets Department, and listening to Fortnight for the very first time? I remember having no idea what to expect, and this track really set the stage for the rest of the album. In fact, I feel like this song actually connects to most, if not all, of the other tracks on this album. Taylor Swift actually said this about the music video. Pretty much everything in it is a metaphor or a reference to one corner of the album or another. For me, this video turned out to be the perfect visual representation of this record and the stories I tell in it. We'll save a deep dive into the music video maybe for the end of the series once we've explored the rest of the tracks on it, but I just think it's an interesting point to keep in mind when looking at the song and its lyrics. So, speaking of, let's get into those lyrics. First, we need to talk about the title. A fortnight is the span of 2 weeks, 14 days, and that immediately links back to Midnight, Taylor's previous studio album, the one that she released right before the Torture Poets Department, which we know told the stories of 13 sleepless nights. Fortnight flows straight on from that, so the fact that it could be the story of the 14th sleepless night really blows my mind. Fortnight is also a collaboration with the artist Post Malone, and this is Taylor's first album to start with a collaboration, so that's quite interesting. Post Malone has a unique style in his own music, blending genres like hip-hop, pop, and R&B, and so working with him on this track, I think really sets up a different sound to this song in particular and also the whole album. From my first listen to Fortnight, I really felt like we were entering a new era of sound. There are definitely lots of sonic and lyric references throughout this album from most, if not all, of Taylor's other eras and albums, and we will explore as many of those as possible throughout this series. But I think that Fortnight in particular sets up just a very different kind of sound that we hadn't really heard so much of before. I think it's also worth noting that Taylor really seems to love this song. She singled it out, no pun intended, for her first single of the album and also the first music video of the album. And she also put it up for most of her award nominations, most notably at the Grammys. I have seen some people commenting and arguing that they don't understand why she's putting it up for these awards or why she has singled out this song as she has, because people say that it's not her best song on the album, and I would agree with that, but I do think that it just goes to show that Taylor must be really proud of the song and that clearly it is a significant song for her. Plus, there's the fact that when Taylor added the Torture Poets Department era to the Eras Tour setlist starting in Paris, Fortnight is the only song out of the 7, I believe, songs that she does in that set. Okay, wait, what does she do on that set? I think it's 7 songs. She does But Daddy, I Love Him, Into So High School, and then Who's Afraid of Little Old Me? She did Florida a few times, but only 4 times, so we won't count that. So Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, Down Bad, Fortnight, The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, and I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. So 7 songs on the set list, and out of all of those, the only one she performs in full, I believe, is Fortnight. And Fortnight is kind of a repetitive song. I feel like she could have cut that down if she had wanted to, but she adds a lot of choreography, a lot of visual imagery to keep the interest, and I think she wanted that full song on that set list. So all of that combined, I think just goes to show that it's a song that we shouldn't count out, and it's one that she's incredibly proud of enough to want to give it the significance and highlight it in her work. Before we get into the lyrics, I just wanted to read this voice memo that Taylor shared about the song because I feel like it gives us a good amount of insight and just her thought process behind the track. Fortnight is a song I really think exhibits a lot of the common themes that run throughout this album, one of which being fatalism, longing, pining away, lost dreams. I think that it's a very fatalistic album and that there are lots of very dramatic lines about, life or death. And I love you, it's ruining my life. Like, these are very hyperbolic, dramatic things to say, but it's that kind of album. It's about a, dramatic, artistic, tragic kind of take on love and loss. In Fortnite, I've always imagined that it took place in this like American town where the American dream you thought would happen to you didn't, right? You ended up not with the person that you love. And now you just have to live with that every day, wondering what would have been, maybe seeing them out. And that's a pretty tragic concept, really. So I was just writing from that perspective. Fatalism, longing, lost dreams. These themes are woven throughout the entire album, and I think that Fortnite sets them up perfectly. So let's look at some key lyrics from the song. We'll cover highlights. Plus, I also made this color-coded map to show the connections to Taylor's other songs and albums. I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. So this links right back to Hits Different, where Taylor said, "Is that your key in the door? Is it okay? Is it you? Or have they come to take me away?" Hits Different is actually the last track that Taylor released before the Torture Poets Department came out. So this line follows on seamlessly. Taylor also sets the Fortnite music video in an asylum, so it looks like, according to that, they came to take her away after all, even though this line says they forgot, but I guess they came back later or something because somehow she ends up there. But maybe it's in her mind she's in an asylum, which could also link to other songs from the album as well. Anyways, the lyrics link very well regardless. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic. So there's a number of references to alcohol in Taylor's songs. This one immediately makes me think of Dear Reader and My Fourth Drink in My Hand, These Desperate Prayers of a Cursed Man. The word aesthetic also makes me think a bit of Welcome to New York. Stick with me, I promise it makes sense, or at least it does in my head. So the opening track, Welcome to New York, really sets the stage for a new soundtrack, which is literally a lyric from that song. And that album completely redefined Taylor's sound, right? Like, that was her first official pop album. So I feel like that line, "It's a new soundtrack, I could dance to this beat," takes on a whole new meaning because the song is literally making that new soundtrack. And I feel like this does a similar thing with setting up this new aesthetic of the Torture Poets Department era, and maybe the fact that it even kind of snuck up on all of us, because she's saying nobody noticed. All of this to say, I hope you're okay, but you're the reason. The reason for what? Maybe the fact that she's a functioning alcoholic, the fact that she may need to be taken away. I hope you're okay reminds me of the line in Last Kiss, "Hope it's nice where you are, and no one here's to blame." Taylor doesn't have a lot of songs that are about more amicable breakups. She's definitely more well known for not so amicable breakup songs. So I think it's notable when there are references to that. I feel like these lines do a bit, all of this to say, "I hope you're okay." But I feel like she's almost of two minds about it because she's saying all of this to say, "I hope you're okay," and no one here's to blame. But then on the other side, "You're the reason, what about your quiet treason?" And those are even the couplings that rhyme, right? Like in a poem. It's like on one hand, "I hope you're okay," and like no one's to blame. But on the other hand, "You betrayed me." So I think that's interesting. What about your quiet treason? Feels like a deliberate reference to war kind of terminology. And that really links to the Great War and how she set up that whole relationship to be in the midst of waging war. And for a fortnight there, we were forever. I just wanted to pull out this line because I think that the juxtaposition between fortnight and forever is so stark. I love that there's that alliteration of fortnight, forever. Each word even starts similarly, but they mean such different things because a fortnight is such a small, condensed period of time, and forever is the opposite of that. So I think that's such good writing and such a small thing. Run into you sometimes ask about the weather really brought to mind from Don't You? She says, "Hey, I knew I'd run into you somewhere," which is very, very similar language. And then in Back to December, "You've been good, busier than ever. We small talk work and the weather." So it's kind of like having those mundane surface level conversations with your exes. Now You're in My Backyard turned into Good Neighbors. I won't chat too much about Maddie and Joe and Taylor's personal relationships, but I do wonder if Taylor could have been thinking about Maddie for this line of the song. They are in the same industry, they're both performing artists, singers, so it would have been very easy for them to run into each other in their own backyards of their careers in the industry. Your wife waters flowers, I wanna kill her. I had such an epiphany about this line. At first, I completely misunderstood the line, and for some reason, as I would sing it, I thought that water flowers was this metaphor for something that I just did not understand. Kind of like how in How Did It End, there's that phrase hothouse flower. I still don't know what that means, so we'll get there eventually. But I just kind of thought water flowers was something similar in my mind. I don't know. But turns out the lyric is as simple as it sounds. Taylor is just saying, "Your wife waters flowers." So the wife of her ex is literally watering flowers outside of her house, and that makes Taylor so mad that she wants to kill her, which seems a pretty extreme reaction, but this is the breakdown. So Genius notes that watering flowers represents stability, contrasting Taylor's inner turmoil. So Taylor is jealous of what her ex and his partner have, that the wife can even be, just doing something as mundane as watering flowers, while she herself is in this turmoil of barely being a functioning alcoholic and being in an asylum in her mind, basically. Then my mind took it here, and I'm a little bit proud of this connection. So Taylor's song Clean says, "The drought was the very worst when the flowers that we'd grown together died of thirst." This scenario in Fortnite just brought to mind those lyrics from Clean and the contrast between them, because the flowers that Taylor and her partner in that song had grown together literally died of thirst because of drought, because nobody was watering them. But the flowers that this man, Taylor's ex, has with his partner, his wife is watering them, like they're thriving. And so Taylor has to watch, because they're literally her neighbors, this seemingly perfect, thriving relationship while she herself is dealing with this cheating husband. And that's not a nice place to be. All my mornings are Mondays stuck in an endless February. This brought to mind Paper Rings and that line, "I want your dreary Mondays," but I feel like it almost turns the lyric on its head. Before, she wanted all of his dreary Mondays, but now she is stuck in her own repetition of dreary Mondays. And I think that Groundhog Day thing is also interesting because she's saying it's like an endless February. And that's what, the premise of Groundhog Day is, that you can't get out of the cycle of this day just repeating itself over and over again. I took the miracle move on drug. The effects were temporary. Taylor's compared love to a drug in Don't Blame Me, My Drug Is My Baby, and illicit affairs, a drug that only worked the first few hundred times. And then for me, the big reference of this is to Florida and how she says it's one hell of a drug. I love you, it's ruining my life is the line Taylor pulled out to represent this theme of fatalism that she mentions in that Fortnight voice memo. So I'll just add those overarching themes of the song in the corner of our page as well. Fatalism, longing, lost dreams. Then we get a repetition of the chorus, but this time Taylor extends it and makes some changes.
Let's just mark all these word changes. So she changes the end of the first line from forever to together. Run into you sometimes stays the same, but then she changes it from asking about the weather to commenting on my sweater. She then moves from the backyard to the mailbox, and then she flips the final line of the chorus from your wife waters flowers to addressing the other half of the relationship. The husband is cheating, and Taylor wants to kill him too.
Run into you sometimes comment on my sweater. I find the word choice of sweater very interesting as well. Obviously, it's the word that fits the loose rhyme scheme together, sweater. It's not a perfect rhyme, but it has the same word ending as does forever and weather in the lines above it. But I just think, pulling in some of her personal background, relationship history, just knowing that she had been in a really long relationship with a British guy. She also had, had something with Maddie Healy, who's also from the UK. And there you would more commonly use the word cardigan over sweater. And Taylor even has a song called Cardigan, a whole song called Cardigan. So I just think, obviously, it could be nothing, but in my mind, I just thought, oh, this is another way that she is really setting the song, rooting the song in America, in suburbia, in this kind of specific time and place. And it's just a little bit of a contrast from previous songs and terminology that she's used.
My husband is cheating.
Of course, could be a cross-reference to Florida and your cheating husband, and just the whole storyline as well of no body, no crime fits pretty nicely with that.
The bridge of the song then repeats these phrases of, I love you, it's ruining my life. I touched you for only a fortnight. She's really driving those points home.
Finally, the song ends with an outro that Post Malone takes away. I hear a lot of people refer to this as the bridge of the song, and I get it. It definitely has the feeling and the lyric kind of influence of a typical Taylor Swift bridge, but I'm pretty sure it's the outro because it's not bridging together two different parts of a song. It's ending the song. There's 4 lines that basically repeat almost exactly except for one word. The 4th line ends with, but it won't start up till you touch, touch, touch me. And the final line ends with, but it won't start up till I touch, touch, touch you. Thought of calling you. Taylor has a lot of songs talking about calling, or more often not calling people, but this line really made me think of the song from Red, I Almost Do. And I just want to tell you, it takes everything in me not to call you. Very similar sentiment. Move to Florida, literally a name reference to Florida and all that that song could potentially represent. So we'll get there in the series. By the car you want, there's a lot of car references in Taylor songs as well, but this made me think of King of My Heart and all the boys in their expensive cars, clearly buying the cars they want. Finally, the song ends with, but it won't start up till I touch, touch, touch you. So Taylor is still pulling these two people together, but there's distance between them. And it really brings to my mind the Eras Tour choreography of this song, where there's Taylor and her dancer, Jan, and they're standing on 2 staircases facing each other, their hands outstretched, but still with this deep chasm of distance between them. So, to wrap all of that up, the main things that I see in these lyrics are first that asylum setting that Taylor sets up in the music video, and then these themes of betrayal, cheating, and fatalism that really echo throughout the rest of the album. Let's move on to Fortnight's musical elements, and this is something that I'm super excited to dive into for each track of this album. As a musician who spent majority of my life studying and training in classical music, I feel like I listen to music a little bit differently because of that background. I pay a lot of attention to production and instrumentation. It's where my ear naturally gravitates toward. And while I always will consider myself a lyrics girly because lyrics mean so much to me, I do feel like the sound of a song plays almost just as much influence on me and how I interpret and listen to a song because of that background. So I'm really excited to share those thoughts with you and to dig into those musical elements. Here are a few that I pulled out from Fortnight. Fortnight is in the key of B major, which is actually not a very common key for pop songs to be written in. According to one ranking that I found, out of the 12 major keys, B major is the 11th most popular for a song to be in, so not very popular at all. On my first listen to Fortnight, I was immediately struck by the bass line. It is the first thing that you hear, and it repeats throughout the entire song. I actually thought I would play it for you. I have a keyboard right over here. I am by no means a proficient keyboard player, but I can pluck away at the keys and read music. So my goal is to properly learn how to play the piano. That's why I just recently got this keyboard, but I haven't done much practice yet. But since I have it, I figured why not use it? And I thought me playing it might help pull it out and make it easier to hear if you hadn't really paid too much attention to it before. Insert me playing Fortnite bassline.
I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic.
The note changes in the space line are so interesting to me because it almost feels random. There's no security or consistency in when the note changes. And I feel like that gives the song almost this off-kilter kind of feeling because literally the foundation of the song, the bass line of the song, is insecure. You cannot guess or know really when the note will change. I mean, it's a little bit of a loose argument because, to be fair, the bass line repeats the same way it does throughout the whole song. So in that way, there is security. But I just mean like the initial phrase itself, if that makes sense. I feel like it still gives this kind of insecure feeling, which I think contributes a lot to the mood and theme of the song. Now that we've covered the bass line, we'll just listen to the song and I'll pull out a few more musical elements that I found hopefully interesting, and then we'll wrap up this first video of our series.
I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. I was a functioning alcoholic till nobody noticed my new aesthetic.
And Post's little harmony right from the beginning.
I hope you're okay, but you're the reason.
So on the second verse, Post Malone starts adding these really nice harmonies at the end of each phrase. And I feel like people are always like, Post Malone has so little on this song, but literally he's getting all of these harmonies, he's getting all of these echoes, and then he gets that whole outro at the end. Listen out for him because he is there, especially on these gorgeous harmonies. So I have to say, around 113, this addition of the electric guitar, it's so cool. I really, really like it.
Took the miracle move on drug, the effects were temporary.
More harmonies from Post.
I love you.
Okay, so around 123, 124, you get this quick little bell, this ringing up top, and this is so genius. So this sound happens when Taylor is in the music video sitting at her typewriter. And I read, because I don't know too much about how typewriters work, but I read that a typewriter's bell rings when you're nearing the end of a line of text to warn you that you're about to run out of paper. So Taylor took that, incorporated it not only into the music video, but into the very sound aesthetic of this song. So genius. And we'll hear that high ringing again in just a second. And this time it really sustains and holds over the whole sound of the song. And we'll talk more about this as we get further into the album because I feel like one of the new sounds that Taylor introduces to the soundscape of this new era, of this new aesthetic in the Torture Poets department, is this almost alien-like, otherworldly, spacey kind of sound, and I feel like this is just the start of it, where it starts with this bell like ringing, and then you get this sustained, high-pitched sound that just floats over top the rest of the instrumentation production. And I feel like that's even reflected in the music video when Post and Taylor are sitting at their typewriter stations and they have these clouds coming out of their typewriters and floating above the rest of the scene. That's very much like Harry Potter kind of vibes, right? Like Ministry of Magic, people working in their respective stations, whatever. We'll talk more about that later. I just feel like that's even reflected in the imagery of the music video, and I love how she ties all of these elements together. It's so good. Anyways.
For a fortnight there we were, forever running to you. Sometimes ask about the weather.
Here you get this synth kind of harmonization with the rest of the song, and it adds just the layering of this track and the production. Jack Antonoff, chef's kiss. I don't know how you do the motion of chef's kiss, but you know what I mean. Here's the synth.
For a fortnight there we were, together running to you. Sometimes
He adds,
my sweater, now
oh
you
nice.
got the mailbox turned into good neighbors. My husband is cheating, I wanna kill him.
See, there's Post doing all of these echoes.
For only a fortnight I touch you, I love you.
That synth coming back to add just more layers to the texture. And then Taylor starts harmonizing. Oh, and that's one of my favorite parts, the way that the synth crescendos and leads into this last half of the outro. So good. And Taylor also joins her voice and she adds this.
But it won't stop till I touch you.
And then the sound just dissipates. It's like these wisps of air or sound or whatever, and then it just like disappears to end. It's so good. So just to sum up everything that we have chatted about in this video, Fortnight really sets the stage both lyrically and sonically for the Tortured Poets department with themes of fatalism, betrayal, insecurity, and longing. And its musical and lyrical depths really make it a standout opening track. Thank you so much for joining me on this dive into Fortnight. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video where we'll be covering the title track of this album. And in the meantime, let me know any of your own thoughts on this track, Fortnight. Did anything strike you differently than before? Did you hear anything that you hadn't paid much attention to before? What's your favorite lyric from the album? I would love to hear any of your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below and I'll check them out. And subscribe to the channel if you'd like to stay up to date with the series and for more bite-sized inspo. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye! This is my third time trying to film this series, so let's see if third time is the charm.